The ink on the deed was still fresh, a jagged forgery of his name that promised a new life for her and erased 10 years of his hard labor. She smiled at him across the dinner table, pouring wine with a steady hand, completely unaware that he had seen the document she thought was hidden in the glove compartment of her car. It wasn't just a house sale, it was an eviction notice for their marriage, signed with a lie. If you find yourself drawn to the quiet, devastating moments where a life unravels before the shouting even begins, you might want to linger here for what happens next. The windshield wipers of the Peterbilt slapped a rhythmic, hypnotic beat against the relentless Pennsylvania rain. Travis rubbed his eyes, the grit of 12 hours on the asphalt stinging beneath his eyelids. The I-376 interchange was a blur of gray concrete and red taillights. But for the first time in 2 weeks, the tension in his shoulders was beginning to loosen. He was home. Or at least, he was 20 minutes away from it. Travis shifted gears, the massive engine growling as he took the exit toward the suburbs. He wasn't supposed to be back until Friday, but a supply chain mix-up in Columbus had canceled his onward load to Jersey. He hadn't called Monica. He wanted to see the look on her face, that split second of genuine surprise before she put on her tired wife mask. He missed her, even if the silence between them had grown thicker than the fog rolling off the Ohio River. He parked the rig at the depot, signed his logs, and transferred to his beat-up Ford F-150. The drive to the house was autopilot. He knew every pothole on Elm Street, every flickering streetlight. When he pulled into the driveway, the house looked dark. It was only 7 p.m. Monica usually had the TV on, the blue glow flickering against the living room curtains. Tonight, the windows were black voids. Travis killed the engine and sat for a moment, listening to the rain drum on the roof. A strange unease settled in his gut, a primal instinct, sharp and sudden. He looked at the front yard. The grass was cut, perfectly cut. Not the way he did it, with the slightly uneven lines near the flower bed, but professionally manicured. Since when do we pay for a landscaper? He thought, frowning. He grabbed his duffel bag and unlocked the front door. The air inside was cool and smelled sterile. It didn't smell like the pot roast Monica usually made on Tuesdays, or the lingering scent of his own stale tobacco smoke. It smelled like lemon pledge and vanilla air freshener. Intense chemical cleanliness. "Monica," he called out, his voice sounding too loud in the hallway. No answer. He dropped his bag and walked into the living room. He froze. The recliner, his recliner, the one with the duct tape on the armrest, was gone. In its place was a generic beige accent chair he had never seen before. The clutter on the coffee table, the stack of bills, her magazines, his stray coasters had vanished. The surface was polished to a shine, adorned only by a fake potted succulent. "Travis?" He spun around. Monica was standing at the top of the stairs. She was wearing a silk robe he didn't recognize, her hair wet. Her eyes went wide, and for a second he saw it. Not joy, not relief. Panic. "You're back," she said, her hand tightening on the banister. "You're not supposed to be back until Friday." "Load got canceled," Travis said, watching her carefully. He didn't move toward her. "What happened to my chair?" Monica forced a smile, descending the stairs a little too quickly. "Oh, that old thing. I moved it to the garage. I was just doing some deep cleaning. You know how dusty it gets. I wanted to surprise you." She reached him and placed a hand on his chest. Her palm was clammy. She leaned in to kiss him, but he felt her body rigid against his. "It looks like a hotel lobby in here, Mon," Travis said, stepping back slightly to look at her face. "And the lawn?" "The neighbor's kid offered," she said, the lie coming out too fast, too rehearsed. "I just wanted things to be nice. Why are you interrogating me? You just got home." "I'm not interrogating," Travis said softly. He looked past her, toward the kitchen counter. Usually it was a mess of mail. Now it was bare, except for a single thick manila envelope that looked like it had been hastily shoved under the fruit bowl. Monica followed his gaze. She took a half step to the right, blocking his view of the kitchen. "I'm tired, Travis." "Let's just go to bed," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that sounded more desperate than seductive. Travis looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. He saw the erratic pulse in her neck. He saw the way she was physically blocking him from the kitchen. "Yeah," Travis said, his voice flat. "I'm tired too." He didn't go to the kitchen. He let her lead him upstairs, but as he walked up the steps, the smell of the vanilla air freshener made him nauseous. It was the scent of something being covered up, and Travis knew with the certainty of a man who had driven 1,000,000 miles of dangerous road that he wasn't going to sleep tonight. Travis lay still in the dark, listening to the rhythm of Monica's breathing. It was too even, too deliberate. She was pretending to sleep, just as he was. Beside them, the digital clock glowed red. 2:14 a.m. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, tapping against the window pane like a nervous finger. He waited another 30 minutes. Finally, her breathing deepened into the heavy, soft snore that he used to find comforting. Now it just sounded like negligence. Travis slid out from under the duvet. He didn't put on his slippers. He needed to feel the floorboards to know exactly where to step to avoid the creaks. He moved like he was securing a load on a windy night, slow, methodical, precise. He went downstairs, the silence of the house pressing against his ears. The pale wash of the streetlights filtering through the blinds. The living room looked even more alien than it had earlier. He walked to the wall above the fireplace. For 10 years, a framed photo of them from a trip to Niagara Falls had hung there. It was gone. In its place was a generic canvas print of a gray geometric abstract, the kind of art you buy at a department store for $20 to fill space. He ran a rough hand over the wall. The paint around the canvas was fresh. She hadn't just moved the picture. She had patched the nail hole and repainted the spot so no ghost of their memory remained. You don't paint the walls just to clean, he thought. He moved to the kitchen. The manila envelope he had seen earlier was gone from the counter. She must have taken it upstairs or hidden it in her car. He opened the refrigerator. It was strangely empty, save for a few essentials: milk, eggs, a bottle of white wine. The magnets on the door, the collection of overdue bills and takeout menus were all gone. The stainless steel gleamed, wiped free of fingerprints. Travis knelt by the pull-out trash bin under the sink. If Monica thought he wasn't coming back until Friday, she might have been lazy with the garbage. He pulled the bin out. It was mostly empty, lined with a fresh bag, but at the very bottom lay a few discarded items she hadn't taken out to the curb yet. He sifted through the refuse. Coffee grounds. An empty wrapper for a brand of expensive cheese they never bought, and a crumpled ball of paper. Travis smoothed it out on the counter, using the moonlight to read. It wasn't a receipt. It was a business card, thick and glossy. Keystone Title and Escrow Services. Brenda Miller, senior closing agent on the back, handwritten in blue ink, was a date and time. Thursday, 10:00 a.m. Final sign-off. Travis stared at the card. His blood ran cold, a slow freeze starting in his chest and spreading to his limbs. A title company. You only called a title company when you were buying property or selling it. He looked around the kitchen again. The emptiness, the depersonalized walls, the missing recliner. It wasn't a renovation. It was a staging. She was selling the house. But that was impossible. His name was on the deed. His father's down payment was buried in these foundations. You couldn't sell a house without the other owner knowing, without a signature. Unless, a sudden memory flashed in his mind. Monica asking him to sign some insurance forms a few months ago before he left for a long haul to Texas. He had been tired, rushing to get out the door. Had he signed something else? Or was it worse? He put the card in the pocket of his pajama pants. He washed his hands, drying them thoroughly on the paper towel, leaving no trace that he had been there. He needed to be sure. He needed to see what was on that computer. The morning light was gray and unforgiving, filtering through the blinds in thin, dusty stripes. Travis sat at the kitchen island, nursing a black coffee that had gone cold 10 minutes ago. Upstairs, the pipes groaned, followed by the hiss of the shower. It was the sound he had been waiting for. Monica took long showers, 20 minutes minimum. It was a habit that used to annoy him when they had one bathroom. Now it was his window of opportunity. He stood up, leaving the cup on the counter. He moved quietly into the small den off the hallway. It was a cramped room, filled with the smell of old paper and the faint ozone scent of electronics. Their desktop computer sat on a cheap particle board desk, the tower humming softly in sleep mode. Travis sat down. The chair creaked, a sharp sound that made him freeze and look toward the ceiling. The water was still running. He wiggled the mouse. The screen flickered to life. It was password protected, but they had shared the same password since 2012. Trayman88. He typed it in. His fingers felt thick and clumsy on the keys. Access granted. He went straight to the email icon. The inbox was clean, suspiciously clean. Just a few promotional emails from Target and a reminder for a dentist appointment. Monica had been scrubbing her tracks. Travis clicked on the trash folder. It was empty. He frowned. Monica wasn't tech savvy, but she wasn't careless either. If she was hiding something this big, she would empty the trash. He sat back, exhaling slowly. He needed to think like her. If she needed to print something or save a copy for the bank, where would it go? Downloads. He opened the File Explorer and clicked on the Downloads folder. There was a list of files. Most were innocuous. Recipes, a PDF of a knitting pattern. But near the top, dated 3 days ago, was a file named PS, signed, final PDF. Travis double-clicked it. The Adobe Reader logo spun for a second, then the document popped up. Pennsylvania Residential Real Estate Purchase Agreement. He scrolled down, his eyes scanning the legalese. Seller, Travis Vance and Monica Vance. Buyer, LLC Holdings, Inc. Purchase. Price, $185,000. The price was low, painfully low. It was a cash for homes predatory number, the kind intended for a quick exit, not a fair value. He scrolled to the bottom, to the signature page. His breath caught in his throat. There on the line marked Seller 1 was his name. Travis Vance. It was written in blue ink. The loop of the T was too wide. The S trailed off at an upward angle, whereas he always finished with a sharp downward stroke. It was a forgery. A decent one, enough to pass a tired clerk's glance. But to him it screamed of betrayal. She had practiced this. She had sat at this very desk, holding a pen, and practiced becoming him so she could erase him. He looked at the date next to the signature. It was dated for yesterday. She had signed it while he was driving through the rain in Ohio, thinking about buying her flowers. The sound of the water upstairs stopped. Travis's heart hammered against his ribs. He closed the window. He checked the recent documents list and cleared the history of the file he had just opened. He stood up, the chair groaning again, and backed out of the room. He made it to the kitchen just as he heard the bathroom door creak open. He picked up his cold coffee and took a sip, the bitter liquid doing nothing to wash away the taste of ash in his mouth. She wasn't just leaving, she was robbing him. She had forged his name to sell the roof over his head, and she was going to smile at him over breakfast while the ink dried. Monica came into the kitchen 5 minutes later, wrapped in a fluffy white bathrobe, her hair wrapped in a towel turban. She smelled of his shampoo, a scent that used to make him feel territorial and proud, but now just felt like another form of theft. "I can make eggs," she offered, her voice pitching up a little too high. She moved to the refrigerator, avoiding his eyes. "Since you're home early, a nice big breakfast." "Coffee's fine," Travis said. He was sitting at the table, his hands wrapped around the mug so tightly his knuckles were white. He forced them to relax. He had to look like the tired trucker, not the man who had just seen his own forged signature. Monica bustled around the kitchen with a nervous energy, pulling out a skillet, then putting it back. She was jittery. Her phone, lying face up on the granite countertop, buzzed. A single notification lit up the screen. Travis wasn't close enough to read the message, but he saw the contact photo. It was a selfie of a man in sunglasses, grinning with a row of shiny white teeth. The name popped up briefly, Gavin. Monica lunged for the phone. It was a clumsy, desperate motion. She snatched it up and slid it into the pocket of her robe, laughing breathlessly. "Just work. Schedule changes. You know how the diner is." Travis took a slow sip of his cold coffee. "Gavin?" he asked, keeping his voice dead flat. "Is that the guy from the dealership? The one who comes in for the lunch special?" Monica froze. Her back was to him. He saw her shoulders tense up. "Oh, yeah, he helps with the schedule sometimes when the manager's out." "Why?" "Just wondering," Travis said. The pieces slammed together in his mind with the force of a collision. Gavin. He knew the guy. Gavin managed the Buy Here, Pay Here lot 3 blocks from the diner. A guy who wore suits that were too shiny and cheap cologne that lingered in the air long after he left. Travis had seen them talking once, months ago, when he'd stopped by the diner to drop off Monica's forgotten inhaler. He remembered the way Gavin had leaned over the counter, invading her space, and the way Monica had flushed, looking down like a schoolgirl. He had dismissed it then. He was a husband who trusted his wife. He was a fool. It wasn't just about the money. The low-ball cash offer on the house, the rush to close, the secret cleaning, it was an escape plan. They were cashing out. Gavin probably promised her a condo in Florida or a fresh start in the Carolinas, financed by the equity Travis had spent a decade building mile by mile on the interstate. Rage, hot and blinding, flared in Travis's chest. He wanted to stand up. He wanted to grab the phone from her pocket and throw it through the window. He wanted to ask her how she practiced his signature, if she laughed while she did it. But he didn't move. If he exploded now, the game changed. She would cry, she would deny, she would gaslight him. Or worse, she would panic and run, taking the signed documents to the title company immediately. The sale was pending tomorrow. The business card in the trash said, final sign-off was Thursday. Today was Wednesday. He had 24 hours. Travis stood up slowly. The chair scraped against the floor. Monica flinched, turning around with wide, fearful eyes. I gotta head out, Travis said, looking past her, focusing on the clock on the wall. What? You just got here, she stammered. I thought we could spend the day together. Depot called, he lied. It was effortless. Paperwork mixed up with the load I brought in. If I don't sign it off now, I don't get paid for the week. Relief washed over her face. It was sickening to watch. She didn't want him here. She needed him gone so she could finish packing. Oh, she said, stepping forward to give him a quick, performative peck on the cheek. Okay, well, hurry back. Maybe we can order pizza tonight. Yeah, Travis said. Pizza sounds good. He walked out the back door, grabbing his keys. He didn't look back. As he climbed into his truck, he didn't turn toward the depot. He turned left, toward downtown, toward the only person who could stop a ghost from selling his home. The law office of Elias Thorne was tucked between a bail bondsman and a dry cleaner on a side street downtown. It smelled of stale coffee and old carpet, a far cry from the high-rise firms depicted on television. But Travis knew Thorne by reputation. He was the guy the other drivers used when they got screwed on a contract or a divorce settlement. He was a pit bull in a cheap suit. Travis sat in the leather chair, his hands gripping his knees. Across the desk, Thorne, a man with thinning gray hair and spectacles perched on the end of his nose, examined the photo Travis had taken of the computer screen. It's a forgery, Elias, Travis said, his voice tight. She practiced it. I saw the drafts. Thorne didn't look up immediately. He hummed, tapping a pen against the desk. It's a decent forgery. Not perfect, but good enough for a notary who isn't paying attention, or one who's being paid not to pay attention. So we stop it, Travis said. I call the title company right now. I tell them I didn't sign anything. Thorne finally looked up, taking off his glasses. He leaned back, the chair groaning under his weight. We could do that. You call them scream fraud. The title company gets spooked, cancels the closing. Your wife plays the victim, says it was a misunderstanding, maybe claims you verbally agreed and then backed out. It becomes a he said she said mess in family court. Meanwhile, she files for divorce, and a judge might still force the sale of the house to split the assets. Travis stared at him. So I just let her sell my house? No, Thorne said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming sharper. You let her try. Thorne pulled a legal pad forward and started sketching a timeline. Right now, it's just a PDF on a computer. Intent is hard to prove. But tomorrow at 10:00 a.m., if she walks into that office and signs the final closing documents, if she presents that forged deed to a notary, she commits a felony. Uttering a forged instrument, mortgage fraud. Travis felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. You want me to let her commit a crime? I want you to have leverage, Thorne corrected. We prepare 2 documents right now. First, an affidavit of forgery. Second, a lis pendens, a notice of pending litigation. We have them notarized and ready. Thorne leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Travis's. You let her go to the closing. You let the buyers sign. You let the funds get wired, and the second that deed hits the county recorder's desk, we file our paperwork. The list pendens clouds the title immediately. The sale freezes. The money gets locked in escrow. The buyers sue her. The bank comes after her. And you're the innocent husband who was out of town working while his wife tried to defraud him. Travis looked out the window. It was still raining. He imagined Monica at home right now, packing boxes, maybe texting Gavin about how close they were to freedom. She thought he was the obstacle. She didn't realize he was the trap. She'll lose everything, Travis whispered. She could go to jail. Thorne shrugged, a gesture devoid of sympathy. She made her choice when she picked up that pen, Travis. The question is, are you going to be the husband who gets walked over, or the man who protects what's his? Travis thought about the empty recliner, the vanilla air freshener covering up the scent of his life, the way she had looked at him on the stairs, like he was an intruder in his own home. Draw it up, Travis said, his voice hard as stone. I want everything ready by tomorrow morning. Thorne nodded and reached for his phone. Good. Now go back home. Be the tired husband. Don't say a word. Let her think she's won. Travis pulled into the driveway at 6:30 p.m., a large pepperoni pizza from Tony's on the passenger seat. The grease had soaked through the cardboard bottom, filling the cab with the scent of oregano and warm dough, a smell that usually signaled a relaxed Friday night. Tonight, it smelled like a lie. He walked inside. The house was quieter than before. The TV was on, low volume, playing a rerun of Friends, the laugh track echoing hollowly in the stage living room. Monica was on the couch, folding laundry. Not his laundry. She was folding her own. Clothes, sweaters, jeans. Tops he hadn't seen her wear in years. Pizza's here, Travis announced, kicking off his boots by the door. Monica jumped, her hand flying to her chest. God, Travis, you scared me. Sorry, he said, walking to the kitchen. He set the box down on the granite counter. You hungry? Starving, she said, though she didn't look it. She looked nauseous. She abandoned the pile of clothes and joined him in the kitchen. She grabbed 2 paper plates. No more ceramic dishes to wash, he noted. Everything was being prepped for the handover. They ate standing up at the island, the silence between them thick and heavy. Travis chewed slowly, watching her. She picked at the crust, her eyes darting to the clock on the microwave every few minutes. So, Travis said, wiping his mouth with a napkin, Depot got me sorted out. They need me back on the road early tomorrow, like 4:00 a.m. early. He watched the tension drain out of her shoulders. It was immediate and visible, like a marionette whose strings had been cut. That's tough, honey, she said, forcing a sympathetic frown. But at least you got to come home for a night, right? Yeah, Travis said. At least I got to see you. He took another slice, leaning his hip against the counter. He decided to twist the knife, just to see if she had any blood left in her veins. I was thinking on the drive down, he said casually, about the house. We've got some equity built up. Maybe next year we finally redo the kitchen. Put in those cabinets you always wanted. Maybe a skylight. Monica froze, a piece of pepperoni halfway to her mouth. She stared at the pristine, empty counter. Next year? She repeated, her voice faint. Yeah. Unless you're tired of this place, Travis said, staring directly at her. You happy here, Mon? With me? With this house? It was her exit ramp. It was the moment she could have said, no, I'm miserable. We need to talk. She could have been honest. Instead, she smiled. It was a tight, brittle thing that didn't reach her eyes. Of course I'm happy, Travis, she said. I love this house. We don't need to change anything right now. Let's just focus on saving money. Travis nodded slowly. Right, saving money. So, 4:00 a.m., she asked, pivoting back to the schedule. That's really early. You should probably get some sleep. Yeah, Travis said, tossing his crust into the trash bin, right on top of where the incriminating business card had been a few hours ago. I'll pack up tonight. Don't want to wake you in the morning. That's thoughtful of you, she said, reaching out to squeeze his arm. Her touch felt like ice. I'm a thoughtful guy, Travis replied, his face an impassive mask. He turned and walked toward the stairs. She stayed in the kitchen, and the moment he was out of sight, he heard the faint whoosh of a text message being sent. She was telling Gavin the coast was clear. Travis climbed the steps, each heavy footfall a countdown to the end of his marriage. She wanted him gone by dawn. He would give her exactly what she wanted, but he wouldn't be far away. The alarm on Travis's phone vibrated against the nightstand at 3:15 a.m. He silenced it instantly, his hand moving with the muscle memory of a man used to waking up before the sun. Beside him, Monica didn't stir. She was deep in a sleep that looked peaceful, almost innocent. It was infuriating. How could she sleep so soundly knowing she was about to destroy him? Or perhaps, in her mind, she had already justified it. To her, he was just an obstacle to be removed, a signature to be forged. Travis slid out of bed. The floorboards were cold. He dressed in the dark, jeans, flannel shirt, work boots. He didn't turn on the lamp. The streetlights outside provided enough illumination, casting long, skeletal shadows across the room. He grabbed his duffel bag, but instead of filling it with his usual week's worth of shirts and underwear, he went to the top shelf of the closet. He reached all the way to the back, behind the winter coats, and pulled out a small, fireproof lockbox. Inside were the papers that defined a life: his birth certificate, the title to his truck, his life insurance policy, and his father's military discharge papers. If he left these, they would end up in a dumpster, or, worse, in Gavin's hands. He shoved the heavy box into the bottom of the duffel bag and covered it with a layer of socks. Next, the nightstand. He opened the drawer slowly, wincing as the wood groaned slightly. Monica shifted in bed, mumbling something unintelligible. Travis froze, holding his breath until her breathing leveled out again. He reached in and took the velvet box containing his grandfather's Hamilton watch. It wasn't worth a fortune, but it was the only thing he had left of the old man. He slipped it into his pocket. He took the spare key to the safety deposit box. He took the challenge coin his brother had given him. He moved downstairs, the house feeling more like a museum than a home. It was too clean, too empty. He walked through the kitchen, resisting the urge to take the coffee maker. He had to leave things that suggested he was coming back. He had to leave the illusion of normalcy. He slipped out the side door into the garage. The air was damp and cold. He switched on the dim overhead light. His workbench was his sanctuary. Thousands of dollars in tools, snap-on wrenches, power drills, diagnostic computers, sat organized on the pegboard. Monica had no idea what they were worth. To her, they were just greasy garage stuff. To Gavin, they would be a quick pawn shop payday. Travis worked quickly. He didn't take everything. That would look suspicious if she checked the garage. He took the high-value items, the precision instruments, wrapping them in shop rags and stowing them in the toolbox of his F-150. He left the bulkier, cheaper items on the bench to fill the visual space. He packed the truck with the efficiency of a thief. Within 20 minutes, he had stripped the house of his most valuable possessions. He sat in the driver's seat of his pickup for a moment, staring at the door leading back into the house. He had one last role to play. He couldn't just leave. He had to say goodbye. He had to look her in the eye one last time and give her the rope she needed to hang herself. He got out of the truck and walked back inside. The kitchen clock read 3:50 a.m. It was time to wake her up. Travis climbed the stairs slowly, the weight of his boots heavy on the carpet. The house was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. The appliance that now held nothing but empty shelves and a bottle of wine, meant for a celebration he wasn't invited to. He pushed the bedroom door open. The room was still swathed in shadow, the streetlights casting long, pale bars across the duvet. Monica was curled on her side, facing away from the door. He walked over to the bed and sat on the edge. The mattress dipped under his weight. Monica stirred, letting out a soft, sleepy groan. She rolled over, blinking against the darkness, her eyes finding his silhouette. "Travis?" she mumbled, her voice thick with sleep. "What time is it?" "4," he said softly. "Time to go." She rubbed her eyes, pushing herself up on one elbow. She looked vulnerable like this, soft and disarmed. For a fleeting second, Travis remembered the first time he had left for a long haul, 10 years ago. She had cried then, clinging to his arm, making him promise to call every night. Now she just looked at the alarm clock. "Right," she said, clearing her throat. 4 a.m. Be careful on the road. It's still raining." "I will," Travis said. He didn't move to stand up yet. He placed a hand on her leg, over the blanket. He felt her muscles tense reflexively beneath his palm. She was recoiling from him, her body betraying what her words tried to hide. "Monica," he said, his voice low and serious. She froze. "Yeah? I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, maybe 3. It's a long run to the West Coast and back." "I know," she said, a flicker of impatience crossing her face. "You told me." "Before I go," Travis said, looking directly into her eyes, searching for even a speck of the woman he had married. "Is there anything you want to tell me? Anything at all?" The room went dead silent. The air conditioner kicked on with a low rumble, but it did nothing to break the tension. Monica stared at him. Her eyes widened slightly, the pupils dilating in the gloom. Travis saw the calculation happening behind her gaze. He saw the hesitation. This was it, the off-ramp. She could say, "I'm unhappy. I made a mistake. I'm scared." She licked her lips. She forced a smile that was more terrifying than a scowl because of how empty it was. "No, honey," she said. "Just to drive safe and call me when you get there." Travis stared at her for a heartbeat longer. He nodded slowly. The last thread of hope snapped. "Okay," he said. "I'll call you." He stood up. He didn't kiss her. He couldn't bring himself to do it. He just turned and walked out of the room. "Love you," she called out automatically to his retreating back. Travis didn't answer. He walked down the stairs, picked up his duffel bag, and walked out the front door. The morning air was cold and wet against his face. He climbed into his F-150, the engine roaring to life in the quiet neighborhood. He backed out of the driveway, his headlights sweeping across the front of the house. He saw the bedroom curtain twitch. She was watching. She was making sure he was actually leaving. Travis shifted into drive and pulled away. He drove down the street, turned the corner, and kept going until he was 2 blocks away. Then he pulled over into the dark lot of a closed gas station. He killed the lights but kept the engine running. He wasn't going to the West Coast. He wasn't going anywhere. He watched the digital clock on the dashboard tick forward. 4:15 a.m. The trap was set. Now he just had to wait for the mouse to take the cheese. The moment Travis's taillights vanished around the corner, Monica didn't cry. She didn't collapse. She exhaled a breath she felt she had been holding for a month and grabbed her phone. Her fingers flew across the screen. "He's gone. It's over. Come get me." 20 minutes later, a silver BMW X5 pulled into the driveway. Gavin stepped out, looking crisp in a navy suit that was a little too tight across the shoulders. He didn't look at the house with sentiment. He looked at it like a butcher eyeing a side of beef. He saw dollar signs. "Did he suspect anything?" Gavin asked as he walked through the front door, not bothering to wipe his feet. "Nothing," Monica said, breathless. She was already dressed in her best business casual outfit, a navy blazer and slacks, designed to make her look like a responsible homeowner, not a runaway wife. "He thinks he's going to the West Coast. He even asked if I wanted to renovate the kitchen next year." Gavin laughed, a sharp barking sound. "Poor bastard." "Well, he can renovate it for the new owners." He wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. "You got the papers?" "In my bag," Monica said. "Signed and ready." They drove to the title company in Gavin's car, leaving her sedan in the driveway to keep up appearances. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and black under the morning sun. To Monica, the city looked different today. It looked like the past. Florida looked like the future. Keystone Title and Escrow was bustling. Brenda Miller, the closing agent, greeted them with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She ushered them into a conference room with glass walls. The buyers, a representative from the investment firm, were already there, scrolling through emails on a tablet. "Mr. and Mrs. Vance," the representative said, not looking up. "Just Mrs. Vance," Gavin interjected smoothly, taking the seat next to Monica. "Mr. Vance is on the road for work. Long-haul trucking. He signed the grant deed and the affidavit of occupancy yesterday before he left. I'm here as moral support." Brenda nodded, shuffling the stack of documents. "We have the pre-signed notarized deed here," she said, tapping the folder. Monica felt a spike of adrenaline. The notary stamp was a favor from one of Gavin's friends at the dealership, a man who didn't ask questions for $50. "Let's get this done," the buyer said, checking his watch. I have 3 more of these today. The next hour was a blur of signing. Sign here, initial here, date here. Monica's hand shook slightly on the first page, but Gavin's knee pressed against hers under the table, steadying her. Finally, they reached the end. The buyer signed the funding request. All right, Brenda said, closing the file with a satisfying thud. The wire transfer has been initiated. Once the deed is recorded with the county, which should happen by this afternoon, the funds will be released to your joint account. How much? Monica asked, her voice trembling. After the mortgage payoff and closing costs, $112,000, Brenda replied. Gavin squeezed Monica's thigh. It was done. They had done it. They walked out of the office into the bright, blinding sunlight. The air tasted sweet. We did it, Monica whispered, leaning against the side of the BMW. We're free. Almost, Gavin grinned, checking his reflection in the car window. Funds hit the account by 2 p.m. We transfer half to my offshore, half to cash, and we're on a plane to Miami by dinner. They got into the car, laughing, the engine roaring to life. They didn't see the gray Ford F-150 parked across the street, tucked behind a delivery van. They didn't see Travis watching them through a pair of binoculars, his face a mask of cold, terrifying resolve. He watched them celebrate. He watched them high-five. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Elias, Travis said into the receiver. They just left. File it. The champagne arrived in a silver bucket, sweating beads of condensation in the humidity of the afternoon. Monica and Gavin had chosen the Capitol Grill, a steakhouse far too expensive for a waitress and a used car manager, but appropriate for 2 people who believed they had just cleared 6 figures. To Florida, Gavin said, raising his flute. His face was flushed with adrenaline and greed. And to husbands who drive trucks. Monica laughed, clinking her glass against his. The sound was sharp and crystalline. She took a long sip, the bubbles stinging her nose. For the first time in months, the knot of anxiety in her stomach had loosened. The deed was signed. Travis was halfway to Ohio by now. They had won. I checked the app, Gavin said, checking his phone under the table for the 10th time. Bank transfer usually clears by 2 p.m. It's 1:45 p.m. now. Any minute, baby. Monica smiled, slicing into her filet mignon. I can't believe we pulled it off. I was so scared this morning. When he asked me if I had anything to tell him, I thought I was going to pass out. But you didn't, Gavin said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. You were ice cold. That's why I love you. The phone on the table buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was a call. The screen lit up. Brenda, Keystone title. Here we go, Gavin grinned, wiping his mouth with a linen napkin. Confirmation call. Watch this. He answered on speakerphone, keeping the volume low so only they could hear. Hey, Brenda, tell me the good news. Is the wire out? There was a pause. A silence so heavy it seemed to suck the air out of the bustling restaurant. Gavin, Brenda's voice was trembling. It wasn't the professional tone from the morning. It was thin, high, and terrified. Where are you? Lunch, Gavin said, his smile faltering slightly. Why? What's wrong? The recorder's office rejected the deed, Brenda said. She was speaking fast, hyperventilating. I just got a call from the clerk. There's a block on the property. Monica dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china. What do you mean, a block? Gavin snapped, his voice rising. We signed everything. The title was clear yesterday. It was clear yesterday, Brenda hissed. But at 9 a.m. this morning, 1 hour before you walked into my office, an instruments filing hit the system. A list pendants and an affidavit of forgery. The world stopped spinning. The background noise of the restaurant, the clatter of silverware, the low hum of conversation, faded into a buzzing white noise in Monica's ears. Affidavit of... what? Monica whispered. Forgery, Brenda practically screamed. The filing was submitted by an attorney named Elias Thorne on behalf of Travis Vance. It claims the seller's signature is fraudulent and the property is subject to pending litigation. The sale is dead, Gavin. The funds are frozen in escrow. And the buyers, the investment group, their legal team is already on the line. They're talking about calling the district attorney. Gavin's face drained of color. He looked like a wax figure melting under heat. He stared at the phone, then at Monica. He knew, Gavin whispered, horror dawning in his eyes. He didn't go to the West Coast. He knew the whole time. He set us up, Monica choked out. She felt bile rising in her throat. The image of Travis sitting on the edge of the bed this morning, asking, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" flashed in her mind. It hadn't been a question. It had been a final test, and she had failed it. "I can't be involved in this," Brenda stammered on the line. "I'm voiding the transaction. I'm handing the file over to the state fraud unit. Do not call me again." The line went dead. Gavin stared at the phone. Then slowly he looked at Monica. The love, the camaraderie, the partner in crime warmth, it vanished instantly. In its place was the cold, cornered look of a rat looking for a way out. "You said he didn't know," Gavin said, his voice low and dangerous. "You said he was stupid." I thought he was," Monica stammered, tears spilling over. "Gavin, what do we do?" "We?" Gavin scoffed. He stood up, throwing his napkin onto the uneaten steak. "There is no we. You signed the papers, Monica. You forged the signature. I was just moral support, remember?" He turned and walked away, walking fast toward the exit, leaving her alone at the table with the sweating champagne and a bill she couldn't pay. The waiter approached the table with a tentative, pitying expression. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" Monica looked up. Her mascara was smudged, a dark stain beneath her left eye. The restaurant was still buzzing with the lunchtime crowd, businessmen closing deals, couples laughing, but she felt like she was underwater. Gavin's chair was empty. The linen napkin lay crumpled on his uneaten steak like a white flag of surrender. "The check," Monica whispered. "I can bring it," the waiter said softly. She paid with a credit card that was joint with Travis, a card she knew was likely already canceled or flagged, but miraculously, the machine approved it. It was a final, small mercy before the avalanche. She walked out of the restaurant, her legs feeling like lead, the bright afternoon sun mocking her with its cheerfulness. She sat in her car, the leather baking in the heat. She dialed Gavin. "The subscriber you have dialed is not available." He had blocked her. Less than 10 minutes after the house of cards fell, he had cut the line. He was probably already scrubbing his texts, deleting her photos, preparing his own defense. "I didn't know she forged it. I was a victim too." Panic, sharp and jagged, clawed at her throat. She needed to fix this. She needed to stop the legal machine before it ground her to dust. She dialed Travis. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" His voice was calm, unnervingly calm. There was no static, no sound of the highway, no hum of the diesel engine. "You knew!" Monica screamed, the anger exploding out of her as a defense mechanism. "You son of a bitch, you set me up." "I protected my assets," Travis replied. His tone was conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. "There's a difference." "You let me go to that meeting," she cried, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. "You let me sign those papers. Do you have any idea what they're saying? They're talking about fraud, Travis. Felonies." "I know," Travis said. "I read the penal code. Forgery in the 2nd degree, uttering a forged instrument. It carries a sentence of up to 5 years in Pennsylvania. Did Gavin tell you that part?" "Gavin left me," she sobbed, the anger collapsing into pure terror. "He left me at the restaurant. Travis, please, you have to stop this. Call the lawyer. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave me permission verbally. Please. I'm your wife." "You ceased being my wife the moment you practiced my signature on a notepad," Travis said. The coldness in his voice was absolute. "And you ceased being my partner when you decided to sell my father's legacy to run off with a used car salesman." "I was confused. I was unhappy." "You were greedy," Travis corrected, "and now you're caught." "I'm coming home," she said, wiping her face frantically. "We can talk about this. I'll explain everything. Just come home." "I'm not coming home, Monica, and neither are you." "What?" "I changed the locks before I left this morning," Travis said. "And the lis pendens isn't the only thing the lawyer filed. He filed for a restraining order based on the fraud investigation. If you go near the house, the police will pick you up. If you try to leave the state, they'll pick you up." Monica stared through the windshield. The parking lot blurred. "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't know," Travis said. "Maybe you can sleep on the floor. I hear you'd rather do that than sleep with me anyway." The line went dead. Monica pulled the phone away from her ear, staring at the black screen. The silence in the car was deafening. She looked around the parking lot, half expecting to see him watching her, but there was no gray truck. There was just the heat, the asphalt, and the crushing weight of a life she had dismantled with her own hands. The rain had finally stopped. The sky over Pennsylvania was scrubbing itself clean, the heavy slate-gray clouds breaking apart to reveal patches of bruised purple and deep blue. Travis sat in a booth at a truck stop diner off I-76, 20 miles east of the city limits. His phone sat face down on the Formica table. It had vibrated incessantly for the last hour. Calls from Monica, texts from mutual friends she had likely panicked and contacted, perhaps even a voicemail from Gavin trying to spin a new narrative. He finally reached out and powered it off. The screen went black, and the silence that followed was the heaviest, most peaceful thing he had felt in years. A waitress with a name tag that read Darlene topped off his mug. "More coffee, hun?" "Please," Travis said. He looked out the window at his truck parked in the lot. The Peterbilt gleamed under the parking lot lights. It was his home now. It always had been, really. The house on Elm Street. He had fought for it, saved it, and legally locked it down. But he knew he would never sleep there again. The memory of the empty recliner and the vanilla air freshener was burned too deep. He would let the lawyers handle it. Elias Thorne would grind through the divorce proceedings. The house would eventually be sold, legitimately this time, and the proceeds split, or maybe used to pay off Monica's legal fees when the fraud charges landed. He didn't care about the equity anymore. He cared that he hadn't let them take him for a fool. He took a sip of the hot coffee. He thought about Monica. He didn't. Hate her. Hate required too much energy, and he was exhausted. He felt a profound, hollow pity. She had chased a mirage of a better life with a man who abandoned her the second the check bounced. She was back there now, likely standing in the driveway of a locked house, realizing that the boring husband who paid the bills was the only one who had ever actually protected her. But protection had its limits. Travis pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, the physical list of loads available for the week. There was a haul going from Pittsburgh to Seattle, 3,000 miles of asphalt, mountains, and plains, 3,000 miles of white lines to hypnotize the brain and numb the heart. He threw a $20 bill on the table, enough to cover his burger and a generous tip. "Keep the change," he told Darlene. He walked out into the cool evening air. The smell of diesel and damp earth filled his lungs. He climbed into the cab of the truck, the familiar groan of the suspension welcoming him back. He placed the Hamilton watch, his grandfather's watch, on the dashboard. It ticked steadily, a reminder that time moved only in one direction. Forward, Travis turned the key. The massive engine roared to life, shaking the frame, a beast waking up. He released the air brakes with a sharp hiss. He didn't look back toward the city. He didn't look at the phone. He shifted into gear and pulled out onto the on-ramp, merging into the flow of traffic. As he hit cruising speed, the road stretched out before him, endless and open. He was alone, but for the first time in a long time, he was driving his own life. He turned on the radio, found a station playing old country, and drove into the night.